Congratulations on getting your first job as a software engineer. That's super exciting. Today I'll share with you what a real first day as a software engineer looks like, what you can expect, and how to prepare for it. So keep watching and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this for new graduates. Hi, I'm Yulia Eskin, a Silicon Valley tech leader and a career coach for software engineers. This is the right channel for you if you want to get promoted, become a tech lead, or just be a better engineer. Your first day in your first job ever as a software engineer is so exciting, but also extremely nerve-wracking. I totally know how it feels because I went through it as well when I started working as a software engineer 8 years ago here in San Francisco. In this video, I want to share with you two different software engineering first day experiences that I had when I started working. One was pretty chaotic and the other one was more of your typical first day. So you get to see both extremes, and I'll also share some tips about how to prepare and ace your first day as a software engineer. So stay tuned and keep watching. So let me tell you about my first day as a software engineer, and this is the chaotic experience. So to start my first real job as a software engineer, I actually had to move from Canada to San Francisco. I finished my master's, I worked as a researcher, but I decided that I wanted to move to the Bay Area, to Silicon Valley, to start my career. So that in itself was already quite a big change. I was very excited to start exploring what it's like to live in Silicon Valley. So the first company that I started working for as a software engineer was a startup that was about 100 people at the time in downtown San Francisco. They actually had me relocate here and paid for my relocation and put me in a hotel for a month. Even though the startup by startup measures wasn't even that small, my first day was still quite disorganized. So let me get into my first day. I was told to come in at 9 a.m. by the HR recruiter that I was working with. She greeted me at the lobby where there was also a front desk person who gave me a temporary badge. Then the HR lady took me upstairs and she gave me some forms that I had to return by the end of the day. These forms were related to payroll, where I had to declare what kind of tax deductions I'll want. I needed to set up a bank account so they could pay me directly, and fill out a form declaring any other work I was potentially doing that could become an issue with intellectual property. She gave me a tour of the office, and of course we started from the kitchen, which is always the best part of any startup office, if you know what I mean. The kitchen was amazing and beautiful. It was actually a fully functional kitchen, not like those tiny kitchenettes that you see at bigger companies. There was an oven and a stove and several microwaves. Startups in general provide food and a lot of free snacks and frozen food and drinks. She was telling me that the startup provides both a lunch and a dinner service in a buffet style, and all the food there is organic and no oil and healthy, and that is very common here in the Bay Area. But also I was actually working for a health tech startup, so it would only make sense that the food would be healthy as well. So next she brought me to the area where I would be sitting. However, what was unexpected to me is that the entire floor was actually moving that day from one floor to another. So everyone was just carrying around their laptops and basically shuffling their things and putting it on new desks and cleaning up. And I kind of came in right in the middle of all of that. It took a little bit of time for me to even locate my manager right away. One thing that I really liked is that there was a buddy system at the company, so they actually gave me a buddy who was somebody who was working in the marketing department, so he wasn't an engineer, and apparently they did it on purpose because they wanted me to have a friend who is outside of my team so that I could just feel comfortable asking general questions and just have somebody I know in another department. So that guy took me to lunch and we talked a little bit about the company. We ended up actually going to the buffet downstairs, and it was just nice to get to know somebody and have a longer conversation and feel a little bit more at ease. After lunch, I came back to the desk, and that's when I had the one-on-ones with my manager and the head of engineering, and they basically told me that they want to set me up for success, that they're there for any questions. They gave me a laptop that already had some basic access to the dev environment, the test environment, which engineers use commonly while developing code. The way that it works is they usually just get basic access to all the different applications. And they also told me that it was still a little bit in flux which exact team I will be on and which project I will be on. For some reason, they were a little bit disorganized and they didn't really think through when I was joining what exactly I'll be doing. So on my first day, they didn't even have that figured out yet. And that made me feel a little bit worried, but everything kind of worked out eventually. So because it wasn't clear which team I will be on exactly, I also wasn't introduced to anybody, which I thought it was a little bit weird. I thought my manager could have started to introduce me to people so that I would feel more comfortable. And I just ended up saying hi to the people who were sitting in my row and the rows around me. And I finally was able to actually open up my laptop and take a look at all the apps and the programming languages installed there. And my manager came to me and basically told me to watch videos about both the product side of the company and the technical architecture. So I think there were maybe 2 or 3 like 2-hour videos each to watch, and he just told me start watching it. At that time I probably had around 2 hours left in the day, so I just ended up doing that in my first day. I ended up coming home that day and actually continued watching those videos for probably the remainder of the week. So that pretty much sums up my first day. It was an okay first day. I thought it was not so organized as I expected it to be. I didn't feel like my manager was like really trying to make sure that I was okay, but overall people were nice and outgoing and I felt fine, and I was just really excited to start working there. So if you like this story and you want me to cover maybe my first week and also my first month or 6 months, then like this video and let me know in the comments, and I'll tell you more at length about my experience at this company. I will say one thing is that I was a complete newbie. I was hired there to be a web developer, but I actually never done professional web development. And so the first half a year was kind of hard because I had to learn a lot very quickly, and I was quite nervous, and my manager was definitely a bit worried that I was like too much of a newbie. So if you're just starting out as a software engineer and you want to be as prepared as you can be for working in tech for the first time, check out my website and how I can support you as a career coach for your first 6 months to make it feel like a breeze. So let me share about my other first day experience that was a lot more typical and organized. So a couple years later, I was starting a new job. I wasn't a newbie anymore. I was starting as a senior engineer, also at a startup that had about 250 employees. And I had a much better experience because it was really organized and much more similar to what you would experience in bigger companies as well. So the way that a lot of companies organize new hire first days is that they basically group all the people that are going to start from different departments. Doesn't matter if you're an engineer or a marketer or an accountant. They basically organize that on a day of the week. Usually it's a Monday or a Tuesday, 2 or 3 day orientation. You come at like 9 in the morning, you meet everybody, you meet the HR people, you kind of sit in the room, and then you have a whole day of presentations. And those presentations usually cover things like the product of the company, the different departments that are there, what are they working on right now, intellectual property and patent law, because when you work for a company, everything you do there that is on their time is their intellectual property, even though if you do something unrelated to your work. So just FYI, that's a good to know. And a lot of times this orientation also includes things that you may not know as a software engineer. So especially if a company is in a specific domain. Let's say if you work in Uber and they're in the auto domain, or if you work for a healthcare company but you don't know anything about healthcare or healthcare insurance, then they're definitely going to do presentations on that so that you just start to understand the context of the work that you're doing. So basically I had one of those days where I think there was like about 10 of us. We were all sitting in this conference room for several days. We had lunches together. In those lunches, engineering managers would drop by, or people from marketing, or different parts of the company. And it was really fun because those first few days it kind of felt like camp. Like we're all in this together, all these people are coming to meet us, everyone is excited that we're starting in this company. So usually these presentations would run until something like 2 or 3 p.m. so that you also have time to do other things like get your laptop, meet your manager, find your desk, etc. So that's kind of what happened. I met my manager on the first day in the afternoon. We had a nice conversation. In that company, they did a very interesting thing, which instead of assigning you to a team right away, they wanted you to have the choice. So what they would do is they would let you work a week on a different team, and you would work on 3 different teams. So your first month, you basically have orientation for about a week, and then the first 3 weeks you're working on different teams. And it's kind of fun because you sort of get to know everybody, you meet people from different teams, you do different kinds of work, and then at the end of the month, you could choose which team you wanted to be on. So that's what happened to me, and I thought it was a really interesting way to kind of welcome a new hire. without the pressure that like you immediately need to get into the work. You usually get assigned work like bug fixes or something like improving test infrastructure, which was what was assigned to me. I got to learn Golang, which is a language I never used before. So it was kind of a fun first day, but also a fun month because there wasn't so much pressure to just dive into work immediately. So other little things that I did on that day is we all went to get our picture taken, the entire group of new hires. We filled out together all the payroll information, setting up health insurance, and just filling out different forms, tax related things. But it was very organized. We were literally sitting in a room together and somebody from payroll would come and walk us through everything. We would all fill it out together. They would answer any questions. So I really liked how they sort of streamlined everything. Everything was so nice, so organized. I didn't have to like go and ask questions and like figure out who to go to. And just to give you a little bit more than my first day, what usually happens in companies, and it was true here too, is that after you finish the company-wide orientation that everybody gets, the team that you join or the engineering department, let's say, would have their own orientation. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go to a talk. They may have just documentation for you to read, or they just will tell you like, go through this, install this on your computer. At this company, we didn't have a lot installed, so we actually had to install a lot of packages ourselves. I had to install Golang and Python and Java and set up my database myself. For me, because I haven't done that in my previous company and it was already done for me, it was a little bit nerve-wracking at first, but people were so nice and everything was really well documented, so it was very easy to follow that. And all in all, I thought it was like an amazing first day experience because I really felt taken care of. They thought through like our first day experience, and so I really enjoyed my first day at this company. So I want to share with you some tips about your first day, how to prepare and just make a good first impression. On that first day or even first week, you're going to be introducing yourself so many times to so many people. And so it's really good to prepare just like a one-line introduction about yourself. And so what I mean by that is say your full name, say what you did before or the company you worked for before, and just like where you're coming from, especially if you had moved here from somewhere else. And always finish by saying like, I'm excited to be here and start working here. So you can say something like this. Hi, I'm Yulia Eskin. I just moved here to San Francisco from Toronto. I was doing AI research there at the University of Toronto. I'm super excited to start working and dig in. And something just simple like that. You basically want to give people something about you so that maybe like you can start a conversation with somebody later and they can remember, oh, you were that person that came here from Toronto. You know, I've been to Toronto once. So basically it's a conversation starter. You just want to give people a little bit of information. And if you had worked at a different company before, definitely make sure that you say, hey, I worked at Google before, or I worked at that company, or this is the school that I'm coming from, just so that people know something about you. The next tip is spend time getting to know the people that are starting together with you. If you're in one of those hiring days where there's like 10 other people, then great. You're gonna make some friends already. And just really think of it. This is your first network at this company. None of these people know anybody else. They're exactly in the same situation as you. And they're often coming from different departments. So maybe somebody's in marketing, maybe somebody's in accounting. It's very unlikely that later in your life in this company, you're just gonna make friends with people from all these different departments. So take advantage of this opportunity you're given to know people in other places. So basically, you know, connect with them during the week, ask them where they're from, how did they find this company. Just basically start making conversation. And I would even say in the first few months, make sure that you like have lunches with these people, go for coffee. It can be really nice and the kind of beginning of your network and this company. So the next tip is really to show curiosity. It's really great when you're just starting out, you're getting a lot of new information. This is a perfect time to ask questions. And when you're getting a lot of information, it's probably pretty hard to just like remember everything, and don't stress about it. Nothing that you're learning in that first day, first week is super critical, and it's completely normal that people expect you to just ask questions again and again as you start getting into the work. So you don't have to memorize anything or stress about it, but I do recommend that you have a notepad where you write notes. And I kind of prefer a notepad rather than a computer, because when you're writing on a computer, people may also think that you're just distracted and not looking at the people presenting, and you really want to make that connection with people initially, especially if it's your very first full-time job as a software engineer. You're probably wondering, Like, what's the dress code? And I'll tell you that for most companies, at least in the Bay Area and the West, people don't have a dress code, and it's usually casual. I wouldn't even say it's business casual. So basically something like jeans and a nice shirt is totally fine. It's really up to you, but just make sure that what you wear, it's clean, it's not wrinkled, there are no stains. Don't wear something like flip-flops. So just make sure that you kind of look appropriate for a work context. But I personally always prefer to go a little bit over than under. I prefer to overdress rather than underdress. And I think for guys, something like a jean or a pant and a shirt, even a t-shirt is fine, but I would probably go with something a little bit nicer like a polo shirt. Remember, you're meeting a lot of people for the first time, and that first impression that you make is the one that's gonna stick with you for quite a while. The other tip I have is how long to stay. I think people wonder sometimes, like especially if your first day is not super organized, if you have been given a little bit to do and you're done, like should you just leave? So no, don't leave. Stay for the full 8 hours because that's what's expected. Most places the work hours are 9 to 5 or 10 to 6. So depending on the hour that you came in, I really suggest that you stay until the end. And if you kind of ran out of things to do, then just go to your manager, go to the tech lead and say, hey, I'm kind of done like with whatever you gave me. Is there something else I could read or something like that? And sometimes they may even tell you, you know what, it's totally fine. Just go home, enjoy the rest of your day. Don't just leave without at least asking, because that can really make it seem like you're not super committed if you're just going to take off early. And if you do take off, at least make sure to go to your manager and say, I'm going to head out. Have a nice day. Thanks for this great first day experience. See you tomorrow. And my last tip for you is get a lot of rest and a lot of sleep before that first day and just on that first week. You're going to get exhausted from the amount of information that you're going to be learning in that first few days because you're going to have orientation. You're going to be meeting a lot of people, trying to remember people's names, what the company is about, what's their project, what's your project. It's just a lot to take on. It's a lot of cognitive load. So that is just my last tip for you. Make sure you get a lot of rest, go home after, try not to work or not to do too much, and get a good 8 hours of sleep before you come back to work the next day. So I hope that it was fun for you to learn about the 2 first day experiences that I had. If you like this video, then please like and subscribe, and check out my website below on how I can help new graduates like you navigate their first 6 months in tech. Thank you and see you in the next video.